Abandoned places have a unique way of capturing our imagination. They tell stories of human ambition, struggle, and sometimes tragedy. Frozen moments in time when communities thrived, only to be deserted by changing circumstances. From crumbling mining towns to underwater cities and deserted military forts, each site carries its own history, shaped by natural disasters, economic shifts, or human decisions. Exploring these forgotten places helps us understand not only the past, but also the delicate balance between people and their environments. Number 1. Craco, Italy. Craco was abandoned due to a combination of natural disasters, poor infrastructure planning, and long-standing economic challenges that gradually made the town uninhabitable. Perched dramatically on a steep hillside in the Basilicate region, Craco was historically vulnerable due to the unstable, clay-rich soil on which it was built. Although the town had stood for centuries, things began to unravel in the mid-20th century. In the 1960s, modern infrastructure projects, particularly the installation of new water and sewer systems, led to water leakage underground. This, combined with the town's precarious geological foundation, triggered a massive landslide in 1963, forcing a large part of the population to evacuate to a nearby area known as Craco Peschiera. Hopes of returning were further dashed in 1972 when a severe flood struck the region, making the area even more dangerous and unsuitable for rebuilding. Finally, in 1980, the Irpinia earthquake caused significant structural damage, rendering the old town completely unsafe and marking the official abandonment of Craco. Number 2. Hotel del Salto, Colombia. Once a lavish mansion turned luxury hotel perched dramatically above Tequendama Falls in Colombia. The Hotel del Salto was ultimately abandoned due to environmental decline, tragic human stories, and a tarnished reputation. Built in the 1920s by architect Carlos Arturo Tapias and opened in 1928, it offered elegance, stunning views, and exclusivity for wealthy guests. However, its downfall began as pollution from Bogotá overwhelmed the Bogotá River and the falls, making the area foul and unattractive, which severely hurt tourism. Adding to the decline, the hotel became known as a tragic site for suicides linked both to despair and indigenous Muisca legends. According to the stories, people leapt from the falls to escape colonial capture, transforming into eagles mid-descent. These tales, along with reported hauntings, cast a dark shadow over the hotel, scaring away visitors. By the early 1990s, pollution and the hotel's grim reputation made it impossible to keep operating, and it was abandoned. In 2011, however, restoration efforts began led by the National University of Colombia and environmental groups. Today, the hotel has been transformed into the Tequendama Falls Museum of Biodiversity and Culture, aiming to preserve its history while raising awareness about ecological recovery and environmental protection.
Number 3. The Maunsell Forts, England. The Maunsell Forts, located off the coasts of England in the Thames and Mersey estuaries, were built during World War II as part of Britain's coastal defense system. Designed by engineer Guy Maunsell, these steel forts were constructed on land before being towed out to sea and anchored to the seabed. Each fort housed soldiers and anti-aircraft guns, playing a key role in defending against German air raids and protecting vital shipping lanes. They were effective in shooting down enemy planes and intercepting V-1 flying bombs aimed at London and nearby areas. After the war, the forts lost their strategic purpose and were decommissioned by the late 1950s. They were abandoned and left to rust in the sea. Over time, storms, ship collisions, and dismantling for safety reasons caused some forts to be destroyed or severely damaged. Interestingly, in the 1960s and 1970s, a few forts were used by pirate radio broadcasters to transmit unlicensed music and news to the UK. This brief era ended when broadcasting laws were extended to cover the waters around the forts. Today, the Maunsell forts stand as rusted, eerie reminders of the past. Most are inaccessible due to their decay, but preservation groups are working to protect them. These forts remain powerful symbols of wartime innovation and post-war culture, fascinating historians, urban explorers, and artists alike. Number 4. Bodie, USA. Bodie, California is a remarkably preserved ghost town, tucked into the Sierra Nevada mountains near the Nevada border, about 75 miles southeast of Lake Tahoe. It began as a modest mining camp in 1859, but its fortunes changed dramatically in 1876 when rich gold ore was discovered. The rush brought thousands of fortune seekers, swelling the population to nearly 10,000 at its peak. The town quickly became infamous for its mix of opportunity and lawlessness, with more than 60 saloons, gambling halls, opium dens, and brothels lining its dusty streets. Shootings, robberies, and brawls were commonplace, giving Bodie a reputation as one of the wildest settlements in the West. Despite its rough edges, Bodie also had churches, a school, general stores, and neighborhoods where families tried to build stable lives. By the early 1900s, the gold began to run out, and the population declined steadily. The last residents left in the 1940s, leaving behind a landscape of weather-beaten wooden buildings, rusting mining equipment, and personal belongings scattered inside abandoned homes. Today, Bodie is a California State Historic Park, maintained in a state of arrested decay, where structures are stabilized but not restored. Visitors can walk through silent streets and look through dusty windows to see furniture, dishes, and books exactly where they were left decades ago. The dry mountain air and the site's isolation have helped preserve it, offering a rare and authentic glimpse into the boom and bust cycle that shaped so many towns in the American West. Bodie stands as both a relic and a reminder of that restless era.
Number 5. Aral Sea Ship Graveyard, Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. The Aral Sea Ship Graveyard, located in parts of Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, is a haunting reminder of one of the world's most dramatic environmental disasters. Once the fourth largest inland lake on Earth, the Aral Sea supported thriving fishing communities and a bustling shipping industry. In the 1960s, large-scale Soviet irrigation projects diverted the rivers that fed it to boost cotton production in the surrounding deserts. Over the decades, the sea shrank at an alarming rate, leaving ports stranded miles from the receding shoreline. Towns like Moynak in Uzbekistan, once a major fishing hub, saw their livelihoods vanish as the waters retreated and fish stocks collapsed. By the early 2000s, rusting ships lay marooned on what had become barren desert, forming what is now known as the ship graveyard. These skeletal remains of fishing vessels and cargo ships sit tilted in the sand, their hulls weathered by sun and wind, a stark contrast to the waves they once navigated. The disappearance of the Aral Sea not only destroyed the fishing industry, but also triggered severe ecological and health problems, including toxic dust storms from the exposed seabed, contaminated with pesticides and salt. While parts of the northern Aral Sea in Kazakhstan have seen some recovery thanks to dam projects, much of the southern portion remains dry. The ship graveyards stand as both a tourist attraction and a sobering symbol of human impact on the environment, telling the story of a sea that vanished within a single lifetime and the communities it left behind. Number 6. Kolmanskop, Namibia. Kolmanskop, located in the Namib Desert of southern Namibia, was once a thriving diamond mining town, but was abandoned after its fortunes faded. The settlement began in 1908 when a railway worker discovered a diamond in the sand, sparking a rush that drew German settlers and miners to the area. Within a few years, Kolmanskop was a wealthy, well-equipped town, boasting grand houses, a hospital, a school, an ice factory, and even the first X-ray machine in the southern hemisphere. The surrounding desert yielded so many diamonds that miners could sometimes pick them up off the ground at night by torchlight. However, this prosperity was short-lived. By the 1920s, richer diamond deposits were found farther south near the Orange River, and mining operations gradually shifted away from Kolmanskop. The town's remote location and harsh desert environment made it impractical to sustain without the economic draw of diamonds. By 1954, the last residents had left, and the desert quickly began reclaiming the town. Today, sand drifts through doorways and fills rooms waist-deep, creating a surreal scene of crumbling houses half swallowed by dunes. The abandoned settlement is now a popular tourist attraction, offering guided tours that tell the story of its boom and bust history. Kolmanskop stands as a striking example of how quickly human ambition can be overtaken by changing fortunes and the relentless forces of nature, leaving behind a ghost town that feels both frozen in time and in the process of disappearing back into the desert. Number 7. Shicheng, China. Shicheng, often called China's Atlantis, was abandoned in 1959, not because of decay or disaster, but because it was deliberately submerged. Located in Zhejiang province, the city had a history of over 1,300 years, dating back to the Eastern Han Dynasty. It was once a bustling political and economic hub, known for its stone architecture, ornate archways, and intricate carvings. However, in the late 1950s, the Chinese government decided to build the Shinan River Dam and create the Qiandao Lake Reservoir to generate hydroelectric power for the region. The project required flooding the valley where Shicheng stood, forcing its entire population to relocate. As the waters rose, the ancient city disappeared beneath the surface, preserved by the lack of wind, rain, and sunlight. Resting between 26 and 40 meters underwater, Shicheng remained forgotten by most until it was rediscovered by divers in the early 2000s. They found that many of its buildings, streets, and carvings were astonishingly well preserved, offering a rare underwater glimpse into centuries-old Chinese architecture. Today, Shicheng attracts divers from around the world, drawn by its eerie beauty and historical significance. Though it no longer serves as a living city, it survives as an underwater time capsule, reminding us how modernization can erase entire communities from the map while unintentionally preserving them in extraordinary ways.
Number 8. Gunkanjima, Japan. Gunkanjima, officially known as Hashima Island, lies off the coast of Nagasaki, Japan, and was abandoned in 1974 after the collapse of its coal mining industry. The island earned the nickname Battleship Island because of its shape and dense clusters of concrete buildings which resembled a warship from afar. Coal was first discovered there in 1810, but large-scale mining began in the late 19th century under the Mitsubishi Corporation. By the mid-20th century, Gunkanjima had become one of the most densely populated places on Earth, with over 5,000 residents living on an island barely 16 acres in size. The tightly packed apartment blocks, schools, shops, and hospitals were all built to support the miners and their families, creating a self-contained community surrounded by seawalls. Life was tough, with harsh working conditions and limited space, but the wages attracted workers from across Japan, as well as forced laborers from Korea and China during World War II. In the 1960s, Japan shifted from coal to petroleum as its main energy source, and demand for coal plummeted. As the mines closed, residents quickly left in search of work elsewhere, and by April 1974, the island was completely deserted. Since then, Gunkanjima has stood as a ghostly relic, with crumbling buildings and overgrown courtyards slowly being reclaimed by the sea air. It remained off-limits for decades, but reopened for guided tours in 2009 and was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2015, standing as both a monument to industrial progress and a stark reminder of its human cost. Number 9. Beelitz-Heilstätten, Germany. Beelitz-Heilstätten, located southwest of Berlin, Germany, was once one of the largest and most advanced hospital complexes in Europe, but it was gradually abandoned after falling into disuse in the late 20th century. Built between 1898 and 1930, the sprawling facility was originally designed as a sanatorium for tuberculosis patients, taking advantage of the area's clean air and pine forests. It featured separate buildings for men and women, extensive gardens, and state-of-the-art medical equipment for its time. During World War I, the hospital was converted into a military facility and famously treated a young soldier named Adolf Hitler for a leg injury. In World War II, it served as a military hospital again, and after the war it was taken over by the Soviet Army, who used it for their personnel until the early 1990s. Following the reunification of Germany, the hospital was returned to German control, but many of its buildings were no longer needed and upkeep became too costly. By the mid-1990s, large parts of the complex were abandoned, though some sections continue to operate as a neurological rehabilitation center. Today, many of the red brick buildings stand empty, their interiors decaying with peeling paint, broken windows, and ivy creeping through doorways. The eerie atmosphere has made Beelitz-Heilstätten a popular location for photographers, urban explorers, and filmmakers, with scenes from movies like The Pianist and Valkyrie shot there. While some portions have been restored for new uses, much of the site remains a haunting reminder of both medical history and the passage of time.
Number 10. Pripyat, Ukraine. Pripyat was abandoned overnight following the catastrophic nuclear disaster at the Chernobyl power plant in April 1986. Founded in 1970 as a model Soviet city to house workers from the nearby nuclear facility, Pripyat was a thriving town with a population of around 50,000 people. It had schools, hospitals, theaters, and parks designed to support a close-knit community centered around the nuclear industry. However, on April 26, 1986, reactor number 4 at the Chernobyl plant exploded, releasing massive amounts of radioactive material into the environment. The Soviet government delayed evacuations for nearly 36 hours, exposing residents to dangerous levels of radiation. Once the evacuation began, the entire population was forced to leave, leaving behind homes, personal belongings, and everyday life frozen in time. The town was declared a no-go zone as radiation levels remained dangerously high for years. Today, Pripyat remains abandoned, with crumbling buildings overtaken by nature, rusting playgrounds, and empty streets eerily silent. The city has become a symbol of nuclear disaster and human error, attracting scientists, historians, and tourists willing to explore the Chernobyl exclusion zone under strict regulations. Pripyat's abandonment serves as a stark reminder of the risks of nuclear power and the lasting consequences of environmental catastrophes on communities and landscapes. Despite being deserted for decades, the town's remains tell a powerful story of sudden loss and the resilience of nature reclaiming a once bustling place.